ॐ नमो नारायणाय ॐ नमो नारायणाय
Asmad-Gurubhyo Namaha, Asmad-Paramagurubhyo Namaha, Asmad-Sarvagurubhyo Namaha. So we're continuing on with the greatness of Saranagati. And in that book, we came up to the section, the chapter about the Acharya's systemization of Saranagati. So we're going to look at that again and finish that off. Pilalokacharya and Saranagati. So Pilalokacharya was a star of the first magnitude in the galaxy of Sri Vaishnava Divine of the 13th century. He wrote 18 treatises of secrets known as Astadas Rahasyam. Rahasyam means secret, Astadas means 18. And these are Rahasya Granthas, just like Vedanta Deshika. And he was at the same time as Vedanta Deshika. So he wrote more or less, he's considered to be the proto Tengalai, or the Acharya for the southern school, or the Sri Rangam school of Sri Vaishnavism, whereas Vedanta Deshika wrote from the point of view of the northern Acharyas, or Kanchipuram Acharyas, the Vadagalais. The three Rahasyas, or the three mantras given in Panchasamskara, are Tira Mantram, or otherwise known as Astakshara Mantram, the 8-syllable mantra Om Namo Narayanaya, the Dvaya Mantram, Sriman Narayana Charano Sharam Bhavati Srimati Narayana Namaha, which is in 2 sections. That's why it's called Dvaya. And the Charma Sloka, meaning there are different Charma Slokas. Charma Sloka means the ultimate verse, or the ultimate order. This is the ultimate order by Lord Krishna in Bhagavad Gita, verse 66 of chapter 18. Sarvadharman Parichaja Mam Ekam Sharanam Bhaja Aham Tva Sarvapapebhyo Moksheshami Masuchaha. They're elaborately discussed in these books by Vedanta Deshika and by Pilalokacharya called Rahasya Granthas. So it's a series of books. Vedanta Deshika has his Rahasya Trayasaram, which is his big book, his magnum opus on this subject. And he also has smaller books called the Chilarai Rahasyangal. If you look on this YouTube channel, you can also find different Dr. Tirunarayan of Sri Rangam explaining and teaching these different Rahasya Granthas of Pilalokacharya. Also, you can find Dr. Alwar of Melkote in Karnataka teaching the Mumukshapadi and a Rahasya Grantha of this type of literature from the Tengalai point of view. Okay, that's also by one of the Astadas Rahasyas by Pilalokacharya that we're talking about right now. So, they're elaborately discussed in Mumukshapadi, right, which is what I just referenced that Dr. Alwar is teaching. Srivachana Bhushanam, which is also by Pilalokacharya. Prameya Sagaram, Prapana Paritranam, Navavida Sambandham, Yadrucha Richikapadi, Parantapapadi, Shriyapatipadi, Tani Dvayam, Sa Sangraham, Tani Charamam, yeah, it should be, Tani Pranavam, right? The Tani Dvayam, the Tani Charamam, and Tani Pranam deal with the Dvaya, the Charma, and Soka, and the Pranava, which is the Omkara. All these works are the quintessence of Saranagati literature and doctrines, which have to do with surrender, Saranagati property. Surrender to God. God's grace is irresistible. So this is the Tengalai, or the Southern School of Sri Vaishnavism. This is their contention, their doctrine is that God's grace is irresistible. Whereas the Northern School, whose doctrines are set forth by Vedanta Deshika, say that God's grace is gained by being cooperative with God. Cooperative grace and causeless grace. This is causeless, irresistible grace. Right, is the doctrine of the Tengalais. And it is God's gift to all the jivas. He practiced Acharya Abhimana. Acharya Abhimana means resorting to a preceptor and surrendering simply to the preceptor and leaving it all up to the preceptor or the teacher. Submission to his Acharya for attaining God's grace. He regarded Saranagati, or surrender, is the only sadhana that was resorted to by all the yogas. So surrender is important in all the different yogas. So we know of karma yoga, jnana yoga, bhakti yoga, all these different yogas of fruit of action, the yoga of knowledge, the yoga of devotion, but all of them are reliant also on Saranagati. They're reliant upon surrender to the Lord. He maintained that awareness of one's dependence, or sheshatvam, the word shesha means servant. Sheshatvam means servitorship, right? Which is the quality of the soul, the individual soul. That one's dependence or servitorship or sheshatvam on the Lord is enough to make Saranagati eligible as a sadhana. According to him, sadhana means an upaya, a method to the goal, a means to the goal. According to him, the Alwars practice prapati only to the archa forms of God. To the archa forms of God means the iconic forms of God in temples. Again, he says the para form of God is like avarna jalam, water above the world, which one cannot see. So sometimes we find this analogy of different forms of water in this world, or different sources of water in this world, and the different forms of God. According to the Pancharatra literature and Pancharatra Agama, which is followed by the Sri Vaishnavas mostly, right? There is also the Vaikanasa Agama, which is also a method of worshipping Vishnu. So Pancharatra and Vaikanasa are both worship, but the Pancharatra Agama, according to that, they say that there are these 5 forms of God. And they're called Karnika, Vyuha, Vibhava, Antaryamin, and Archa. So Karnika means the original personality of Godhead, right? The original form of God in his supreme heaven or supreme abode of Vaikuntham, like that. And he is a long way away from us right now. So he is like the water in the clouds or the water in the water vapor in the air. A thirsty man cannot get water from the clouds or water from the water vapor in the air, right? It's not available for him immediately. It would be very difficult to get the water from above the earth, and if you were thirsty. So water above the world, which one cannot see. You cannot even see that water. The Antaryamin is like water underneath the earth. Okay, so we have the Antaryamin is also the Paramatman, or the super soul within the heart of every living being, which is just close to the Jivatman. It's there within the body and is the witness and is the controller, and it accompanies us everywhere when we have a material body in the material world. But that also is available to meditate upon and directly come in contact with only through mystic yoga. So the yogis, they meditate very hard and very long to be able to see the super soul, to be able to interact with the super soul. So that is compared to water that is in underground storage. So in order to get water in underground storage, we have to dig a well, or we have to put a pipe down, put a bore well down. So it requires money, it requires time, it requires a lot of labor to reach that water, right? Just like the yogis require a lot of difficulty to do that mystic yoga, to connect with the super soul. So one also cannot see that. The Antaryamin is like underneath the earth, which one cannot see. The Vyuha form is like the Milky Ocean. Vibhava, so the Vyuha form, there are Vyuha forms of Vishnu that is conceived of as a place called Sweatadweep in the middle, which is called a white island, which is in the middle of a white ocean made of milk, like that. So that is in a higher plane that the devatas or the demigods go and they approach Lord Vishnu at that time. But we are unable to reach that type of that form of the Lord also. Vibhava is like the rivers that overflowed, right? So imagine if we have a flash flood, right? So sometimes we have a drought and other times we have torrential rain, and the torrential rain flows down the mountains, the higher peaks and things like that, and becomes rivers, and those rivers overflood their banks and we get a flash flood. So a flash flood, the Vibhava forms are the avatars that we know, like Krishna and Rama and Narasimha. They appear from time to time. You have to be in the right place and the right time, right, to see those forms. They're not appearing to us today. But if you lived in the Treta Yuga, you might have seen Lord Rama. If you lived in the Dwapara Yuga, you might have personally seen Lord Krishna. But they come at a certain time, like the flash floods. So in order to drink or to get water to use from a flash flood, you have to wait for the flash flood to come. So we have the next avatar of the Lord Kalki coming at the end of this age, which is in another 2,000 years, like 32,000 years, right? So that is too long for us to wait because our lifespan is only 100 years. So unless you're in the right place at the right time, it's very difficult also to contact those type of forms of the Lord, the Vibhava form. Then we have the Archa forms, which are the iconic forms of deities in temples. And those are there, and we can visit those temples even today. There are 106 of them, 108 in all, which were spoken of by the Alwars. And the Alwars did their pranams and did their Sharanagati or surrender to these deities in temples all around India, like that. Many in South India, about 85 in Tamil Nadu, and then less in some other states, and even up to Nepal. There are these Divyadeshas, divine holy places, that are spoken of in the 4,000 hymns of the Alwars. So this is very easy. This is like having water in the palm of your hand. If you have water in the palm of your hand, or if you have a cup in your hand, you could immediately use that water, drink that water, and then satisfy your thirst. So if one is going to perform Sharanagati or surrender, one needs to perform it to the Supreme Lord. And that form in the temple is the most easy form for us to go before and to prostrate ourselves and to perform property or surrender to the Lord in that form. So that is like, he says that it's like the storage of water once flowed, which spread into 108 places. Again, he continues that one does not require a deep learning or knowledge like an Acharya or Alwaz to practice Sharanagati or self-surrender. According to him, Hilalokacharya, the bondage or bandha of the soul, the bondage in this material world, is true, and the removal of the bondage is also true, because according to some other philosophers like Shankara, the bondage that we experience in this world, and even the duality of this world, or this world even itself, is not true. It's an illusion. But all of the acharyas of the Vaishnava Sampradayas accept Harinamavad, that this world is true. This world, it may be temporary, it may be changing, but it is true. Matter actually exists. Okay, so Sharanagati or self-surrender to God is regarded as a means to remove bondage, right? So that the bondage of this material world will be completely freed of that when the body falls, when we die, and we go to liberation, we go to moksha, we go to the service of Sriman Narayana. This Sharanagati may be direct, avyavahita, or indirect, vyavahita. So in the first case, the Sharanagati is complete and absolute and done once for all. The indirect Sharanagati or surrender is the continual meditation on God through love of Him, along with the performance of obligatory duties and the non-commission of prohibited acts or actions. Hilalokacharya and his brother Alagiya Manavala Perumal Nayana did a good service in writing on the literature of Sharanagati or surrender in their works. Those works are Srivachana, Mukshapati, of course, and the 18 Rahasyas, right? Srivachana Bhushanam and Acharya Hridayam, respectively. Acharya Hridayam was written by his brother, Alagiya Manavala Perumal Nayana. For Nayana's work on Arul Chael Rahasya, Aruli Chael refers to the 4,000 Nalaya Divya Prabandham, the 4,000 verses of the Alwars in Tamil, the Tamil Veda. And Rahasyamam, there are many commentaries, different commentaries of different lengths, the 6,000 verses, 9,000 verses, 12,000 verses, 24,000 verses, and 36,000 verses are the size of the different commentaries that are written on the Divya Prabandha. Also enlightens the Sharanagati sadhana through the elaboration of the three rahasyas, or the three secrets, the three secret mantras. When we study the nature of surrender or Sharanagati and its importance in the role its important role in the life of a Prapana, it's essential to know how the Acharyas showed the path in their texts. Pillai Lokacharya, in his text Srivachana Bhushana, elaborately discusses about Saranagati. Now, if you look also on this YouTube channel, you can find classes on Srivachana Bhushanam also. Srivachana Bhushanam also in English. I am giving below some of the tenets. There is no restriction to do Saranagati in a particular place or particular time or particular type or eligibility or its benefits. While narrating each item elaborately by Manavala Mamunigal for the Srivachana Bhushana Sutra, he quotes the following sloka of Bhararaja Samhita, which states the non-restriction of forms for doing Saranagati or surrender. Now, Manavala Mamunigal, we're talking about Pillai Lokacharya here. So all of a sudden, he's introduced Manavala Mamunigal. He's explained about Pillai Lokacharya's younger brother writing one book. Pillai Lokacharya wrote 18 books on these secrets. His brother wrote one, Acharya Hridaya. And Manavala Mamuni wrote commentaries on these books by Pillai Lokacharya and Pillai Lokacharya's younger brother. So, Alagiya Manavala Parimal Nayana. So here's a sloka. I'm not going to attempt to read from the Telugu, so I'm just going to say, only Vishaya Niyamam is necessary. Vishaya Niyamam is necessary, which means one has to perform Saranagati in the place where the fullness of attributes of God exists. So there's no qualification for doing the surrender to God. There's no qualification. The person who surrenders doesn't have to, there's no qualification of time, place, or circumstance for that person. But that person has to, the point is that he has to surrender to the right person. And the right person is only Sriman Narayana, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the Supreme Godhead. So he has to surrender to him. And so therefore he has to find a place to surrender to him, like that. For doing particular karma, one has to locate a punya chetra, an auspicious place. Vasanta kalam, meaning he has to do it in a particular time. In this case, Vasanta kalam means during springtime. Shastras have to be looked at for the different rules and regulations. This is all if we want to perform particular karmas or particular rituals, which are given to us in the Karma Kanda section of the Vedas, or in instructions that we have to follow in the Varnashram system, or just to perform karma yoga. So, but for doing Saranagati or surrendering to God, no particular time or place is necessary. Like Vibhishana directly came without any restrictions like finding time and place. So we have in Jyotisha Shastra in India, we have the idea of Muhurta, where somebody picks a particular good time to do something. So for Saranagati, there's no restriction. You can anytime, any place, as long as you are surrendering to the right person, meaning Sriman Narayana, that will be successful. Pillai Lokacharya in another sutra clearly establishes that in mantra ratna, or the gem-like mantra, right? In the first word, mantra ratna is another name for the Dvaya mantra, which comes in two sections, Sriman Narayana Charano Sharam Papadye Shrimate Narayana Namaha. In the first word, Srimate, or Shri, that mat in Sriman, or Sriman, it implies the Nitya Yoga of Pirati. Pirati means Goddess Lakshmi, or the Lord's divine consort, who is mediating between the souls and the Lord in the process of surrender. So Nitya Yoga means eternal, no separation. It means eternally they are together, the Lord and his divine consort, Sri Devi or Lakshmi, who has no restriction to help the jiva who comes at any time and at any place. The original text reads, Ivartam mantra ratnatil dvayam padhana padatile suspastam. In another sutra, he states that there is no particular eligibility to practice Saranagati, as Dharmaputra, Dwapati, Kakasura, Kalyan, Sri Gajendra Alwan, Sri Vibhisha Alwan, Perumal Sri Rama, Ilayala, Peramo, meaning Lakshman, etc., did Sharanagati without restriction. So all these people, like Dharmaputra means Yudhishthira, Draupadi is the wife of the Pandavas. Kakasura was a crow who surrendered to Lord Rama in the Ramayana. Kalyan means can mean the Kaliya serpent in Krishna Lila, or it can also mean Kalyan also refers to Tirumangai Alwar. Sri Gajendra Alwar, meaning Gajendra, the elephant king of the elephants. Vibhishana Alwan, which means the brother of Ravana, Vibhishana. Perumal Sri Rama, right? So Ramachandra himself did Sharanagati in the Ramayana to Varuna, to cross the ocean, to go to Lanka, which was actually unsuccessful. And in several cases, he did Sharanagati, different types of Sharanagati, which is why the Ramayana is very, very important to Sri Vaishnavas, and it's called the Sharanagati or Surrender Shastra, the surrender scripture. Ilayala Perumal, Lakshman, right, also surrendered to Rama and to Sita, and he was serving them always during their journeys. They all did Sharanagati without any restriction. Elaborating on the above sutras, in showing the number of persons who did Sharanagati, who were surrendered, without any eligibility in the commentary, Tirunarayana Puratu Ai, it is said that Dharmaputra and others who are Kshatriyas in line of second to Brahmins did Sharanagati at the feet of Lord Krishna with so much faith as follows. Says here, Draupadi, who was not eligible to pronounce any mantra, did Sharanagati without any shyness at the feet of Dwarkanath by saying, Shankachakra Gadapani Dwarakalina Atuta Govinda Pundari Kaksha Rakshama Sharanagatam. When she was being stripped naked in the assembly, she prayed to Lord Krishna, who was in Dwarka. They were in Hastinapur, they were in New Delhi area, and Dwarka is over in Gujarat. But she prayed to Govinda Nama, the name of Govinda, meaning Lord Krishna, and he supplied, because she surrendered to Lord Krishna, he supplied unlimited clothes for her to wear. Kakasura did a great sin, disguised himself as from Deva Rupa. So he was a Devata, I think the son of Indra, by touching Sita, right? He pecked at her breast like that. Did Sharanagati at all places, and lastly fell down at the feet of Brahma. So it is said as follows: Kalyan, who is full of tamasic qualities, did Sharanagati at the holy feet of Lord Krishna. So this is talking about the Kaliya serpent, who Lord Krishna danced on the hoods of the Kaliya serpent, and he sent him out from the river Yamuna. Sri Gajendra Alwan was born as an animal creature, and who wishes to do kainkarya, or service to the Lord, by putting lotus flowers before they faded at the feet of the Lord, and did Sharanagati as follows. So he's giving here in Telugu script, he's giving all the quotes from the different shastras on these different people doing Sharanagati. Sri Vibhishana, who was by birth a Rakshasa, and Dharmatma, who dispelled the relationship of his brother Ravana, did Sharanagati as follows. Rama, otherwise called Perumal, himself, supreme, did Sharanagati to the king of the ocean, Varuna, as I said, only to show the nature of Sharanagati by practicing it himself, said as follows. So, Ilaya Perumal, Lakshmana, who accompanies Rama, right, his younger brother, as a servitude, also did Sharanagati at the holy feet of Rama, inseparably wanted to do kainkarya, said as follows. Muchikunda, right, did Sharanagati to Lord Krishna with the following words. In the commentary of Sri Vachanabhushana by Malavala Muni, some more names of those who did Sharanagati, who surrendered, also mentioned in the sutra above, and they are Kashatra Bandhu, Madhavi, Kaliya Patni, right? Means the wives of Kaliya, Indra and other devatas, and Vanaras, monkeys like Hanuman, Sugriva, etc., that Lord Rama met, in the Ramayana. Chatrabandhu did Sharanagati of Lord Vishnu and said as follows. Madhavi did Sharanagati stated as follows. The king of Kalyan did Sharanagati at the holy feet of Lord Krishna after seeing the Kalyan serpent of the ocean who was severely injured by Lord Krishna, she says. So unfortunately, my Telugu reading of Telugu is less, and so therefore I'm not pronouncing all of these, and he's not giving the translation for these things. So a good thing to do would be to go through and to transliterate all these and to find those quotes and give the translations of all the things that all these prapanas, all these refugees at the feet of the Lord who surrendered to the Lord have said. Indra and other devatas who won by the armies of Daityas, or won over the armies of the Daityas, did Sharanagati at the lotus feet of Lord Vishnu, said as follows. The group of Vanaras, or monkeys, who were injured by Rakshasas, did Sharanagati to Lord Vishnu and said as follows. In such a way, i.e., and Manavala Muni unearthed the thoughts of Pillai Lokacharya in identifying the adhikaris, or the proper recipients who are qualified, who did Sharanagati. So he's just giving a list of all these people who did Sharanagati. And the idea of giving a list of all these different people who did Sharanagati, who surrendered to and whose surrender was successful to the Supreme Lord, right, is to show how easy and how quick the process of surrender is, and to show all the elements of surrender. Vedanta Deshika and Sharanagati. So now we've talked about Pililokacharya, his brother, Alagiya Manavala Peramal Nayana, who wrote Acharya Hridayam, and also a little bit about Manavala Mamunigal, who was commenting on their books later on. So now we're talking about Vedanta Deshika. Vedanta Deshika, of course, was a contemporary of Pililokacharya, but he wrote slightly from some slightly different point of view, the point of view of the Northern Acharyas, the Vadagalai, the so-called Vadagalai or Kanchipuram school. So next to Ramanuja, Vedanta Deshika emerged as a very exponent on a very popular exponent on Sri Vaishnavism, and he has enriched the popularity and significance of surrender or Sharanagati in all its aspects in his famous work, Srimad Rahasya Trayasaram, which is available in English if you want to go through it. This is his magnum opus, his great book on the esoteric meaning of the three mantras, but it covers a lot more other ground also. It's a very good book. So along with Rahasya Trayasaram, he has established an independent validity of property in his writings in both Sanskrit and Tamil, right? Also in Manipavala, which is the mixture of Sanskrit and Tamil, such as Tatparyatika, Gita Sara, Nyasa Vimsati, Nyasa Tilaka, Nikshepa Raksha, Adai Kalapatu, and so on. Vedanta Deshika analyzes the Sharanagati Gadya by comparing with each word of the Mula Mantra, Dvaya Mantra, and Chanama Sloka. So Sharanagati Gadya, of course, is part of Gadya Traya, the three Gadyas or prose works of Ramanuja, which have to do with surrender, Vaikuntha, and Sri Rangam. So Sharanagati Gadya is about surrender. Though the literature of Sharanagati was available prior to Vedanta Deshika, it was he who has elaborated, reaffirmed, and consolidated the texts of Sharanagati. His work, Rahasya Trayasara, marks a vital landmark in the history of Sri Vaishnava philosophy. It deals in a masterly way about the different dimensions of Sharanagati or surrender. He gives the quintessence of the doctrine of Sharanagati as follows. It says, when a man falls into despair or grief because he is not able to adopt certain upayas or means of liberation, which are prescribed as productive of the desired results, to that man I stand as those means and guarantee the results. So the Lord himself becomes the means and guarantees the results. Now, the development of Vaishnavism. Although Ramanuja did not write by himself any commentary on the Alwar's hymns in general, and particularly Nam Alwar's Tiruvaimoli, but he gave impetus to the task of writing on Tiruvaimoli through his Jnana Putra, Tirukuran Kai Piran Pilan, to write a commentary. Then Alwar's work, right, meaning Tiruvaimoli, came to be studied by acharyas such as Srinatha Munigal. They grew up there grew up a school of combined Tamil and Sanskrit learning called Manipravala style. Manipravala, as we've discussed before, is a mixture of pearls and coral. So Manipravala is a language, is a mixture of Tamil and Sanskrit. As the days passed away, it developed importance among the acharyas of Sri Vaishnava community by dialogues and discussions on Alwar's hymns. When he says Alwar, he means specifically Nama Alwar, right? If you mean an Alwar which is not Nama Alwar, then you have to say the name. If you just say Alwar, normally on Sri Vaishnavas it means Nama Alwar. He is the greatest of the Alwars. So, as Professor J. Parthasarathy says, it is a matter of common knowledge that certain differences in interpretation refinements of the concept of property in Saranagati came into prominence in the post-Ramanuja era of Vaishnava history. He further says that Pillai Lokacharya and Vedanta Deshika are agreed in exalting property to a higher status than that of the ordinary Vaidika Dharma. What is the ordinary Vaidika Dharma? That is the Varnashrama Dharma, right? Which is the normal method of the normal social system that we see in given in the Dharma Shastras, like the different Shmiti Shastras like Manu Shmiti or Parashara Shmiti or Yajnavalkya Shmiti, all these different Shmiti works, or even the sutra works of Apastamba and Bodhayana, etc. Okay, so it is said that to defend the religious dogmas dominated by other religions, Ramanuja wrote 9 texts only in Sanskrit. Right? So Ramanuja himself never wrote in Manipravala, or he never wrote in Tamil. So he never commented on the works of the Alwars. And he didn't use quotes. He used to use quotes mainly from the Vedas to support, because the Vedic injunctions are considered the highest form of pramana, and easily he could defeat the other philosophies like Advaita, right, by using those common pramanas or common proofs from Sanskrit scriptures, whereas by using Tamil, he may not have been able to do it, which were based fundamentally on the doctrines of Dravida Veda, that is the Alwar's hymns. The doctrines, of course, are included in the Alwar's hymns, apart from Upanishads and so on. Hence, Nayanar, right, who we talking about when we say Nayanar, the younger brother of Pillai Lokacharya. It means Alagiya, Manavala, Peramo, Nayanar. So his name is Nayanar. Hence, Nayanar says, Vasyakara, Idukondu, Sutra, Bhakyangal, Orunga Viduva. In his Acharya Hridayam, right, which is the book that he wrote, which means that Bhashyakara, the word Bhashyakara, Kara means the person or the writer or the doer or the maker, right? Bhashya means his commentary on Vedanta Sutras. So Sri Bhashya was written by Ramanuja. So when we say Bhashyakara, we mean Ramanuja. So, which means that Bhashyakara, while writing commentary on the Brahma Sutras, which are also called the Vedanta Sutras, used to apply the theme of the Alwar's hymns, but in Sanskrit language. So when we study the text of Pillai Lokacharya and Vedanta Deshika, one can identify the inner thought of each acharya in understanding the meanings on various topics. I am herewith enumerating the views expressed by both acharyas. Both acharyas means, I think, meaning Vedanta Deshika and Pillai Lokacharya or Manavala Mahmuni, both sub-schools, right? In knowing the comprehensive account of Saranagati. So in order to know a comprehensive account of the system of surrender according to the Sri Vaishnavas, we should look at the views expressed by both sides, both of the different sects of Sri Vaishnavas and their acharyas. Some of their expressions related to Saranagati are as follows. So Vedanta Deshika believed that the jiva, or the soul, the individual jivatman, should seek God's grace in helpless condition. Only then the jiva can receive refuge and help from God, while Pillai Lokacharya opines that God's mercy is flowing towards the jivas unceasingly, and there's no necessity for the jiva to surrender to God. Right? So this again was the cooperative grace, which is symbolized by the mother monkey, the baby monkey grasping hold of the back of the mother, and the unconditional, causeless, irresistible grace of the Southern School of Tengalai Sampradaya, which is represented by the mother cat that comes along and picks up the kitten in her mouth, right? This is called Markata Nyaya and Marjala Nyaya, the logic of the monkey and the logic of the cat. Okay, so this is a difference on the grace of the Lord, whether it should be cooperative grace or whether it should be cooperative grace or whether it should be causeless, irresistible grace. So, number 2, according to Vedanta Deshika, Shri, or the goddess Lakshmi, is an omnipervasive or all-pervasive, is all-pervasive like Lord Vishnu, her husband. Whereas Pillai Lokacharya's opinion is that Shri is not all-pervasive exactly in the same way as her husband. She's more like the other infinite Jivatmans, right? That she is all-pervasive by her qualities, one of her qualities being all knowledge, and therefore she's all-pervasive by her guna. So this is all-pervasiveness is called Vyapti in Sanskrit. So Vedanta Deshika believes in Swarupa Vyapti, that she is by her very nature all-pervasive, whereas, just like God, just like Sriman Narayana, whereas the Tengalai Acharyas say that she is all-pervasive, but through her qualities, her quality of all-knowingness, like that. So that is called Guna Vyapti. So there's Swarupa Vyapti and Guna Vyapti. These are the two doctrines of the Northern and Southern schools. But Shri is an exceptional soul because Shri cannot undergo the state of bondage. So this is a very important thing, that there are different Nityasuris or eternally pure souls in Sri Vaikuntham. And Lakshmi is, of course, one of them, and she therefore cannot come under illusion, cannot come to this material world and be covered by ignorance or ajnana or maya. Right. So, and at the same time, she is much, much higher than these other souls, in the sense that she is the divine consort of the Supreme Lord, and she has his ear, she has his favor, and she is therefore able to act as a mediator between the errant, the souls that make so many mistakes, and the Supreme Lord. So the Supreme Lord is like the father, the souls are like the children, and Sri Devi is like, or Lakshmi is like the mother, right? So the Wadagalais of the Northern School, they want to emphasize that Sri Devi and the Lord are both the parents in the relationship, and the souls are all like their children. They're our mother and fathers, they're our divine parents, and they want to emphasize that. And so, and whereas the Tengalai Acharyas, they want to emphasize in the family relationship, they want to emphasize that not only are they parents and that we are the children, but they also have a relationship, and in their relationship, the father has a certain role to play in the household, and the mother has a different role to play in the household, and therefore she is different from him in some ways, like that. So that's just the emphasis of the two schools on this point, like that. It doesn't really matter which emphasis you follow. If you have faith in one, the emphasis of one school or the emphasis of the other school, both the Wadagalais and Tengalais pray to Sri Devi, because Ramanuja prayed to Sri Devi in his Saranagati Gadya. He surrendered to her in the beginning of that, and he says, "Please, you're my mother. You're the mother of the universe. Please mediate between us and Sriman Narayana, and help us to surrender to Sriman Narayana and have him accept us." Okay, so the third point here is Vedanta Deshika further describes that the path of Saranagati can be adopted for those who cannot follow other sadhanas such as Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, for those who seek to attain moksha immediately. Okay, so Vedanta Deshika and the Northern School, or the Wadagalais, the Kanchipuram school of Sri Vaishnavas, their idea is that the Lord has, in the scriptures like Bhagavad Gita, taught Karma Yoga. He's taught Jnana Yoga. He's also taught Bhakti Yoga, as well as teaching Sharanagati or Prapati or surrender to him, right? So that not everybody is qualified for Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga, and Bhakti Yoga. For those who are not qualified to perform Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga, and Bhakti Yoga, they can perform Prapati, they can surrender to the Lord. That'll be quick and easy for them to attain the same goal. For those who are qualified for Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga, and Bhakti Yoga, meaning the Trivarnika males usually, the men who are born in the families of Brahmins, Kshatriyas, and Vaishyas. So those people generally are understood to be qualified for performing Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga, and Bhakti Yoga. And so for them, they can also attain the supreme destination and the supreme goal of moksha, liberation, and go to Sri Vaikuntha by following these other paths of Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga, and Bhakti Yoga, because the Lord's taught them in the scripture. So naturally, you can follow them. But however, we looked at Sri Vaishnavas don't actually, so theoretically, Vedanta Deshika says, theoretically, if you're qualified for Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga, and Bhakti Yoga, you can perform it. However, the Sri Vaishnavas take the position, both Wadagalais and Tengalais, both the southern and northern school, the Sri Rangam and Kanchi Acharyas, take the position that if you want a quick and easy method to go to perfection, to go to Sri Vaikuntha, to go to eternal service to Lord in Vaikuntha, Sharanagati or property is the best way. So both sides say that. The difference is that Vedanta Deshika says it is possible if you are qualified, you can perform Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga, and Bhakti Yoga, right? Whereas, on the other hand, the southern school, the Tengalais, the Sri Rangamacharyas, led by Pillai Lokacharya and Manavala Mamuni, they say, but for Pillai Lokacharya, Sharanagati becomes the sadhana or the only way for anyone who knows one's nature to be absolute servitude or sheshatva of God. So, in fact, the Tengalai Acharyas go so far as to say that if we try to perform, if we think that we can perform any of these other yogas like Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga, or Bhakti Yoga, which are dependent upon cooperative actions by ourselves, dependent upon our own qualifications and our own actions, right? We have to do something. Even if it's the cooperative grace of the Lord, even if the Lord does 99% of it, if we have to do 1% and we cannot even do the 1%, then we will fail. And it may take a long time. It may take many, many births. So the idea is that if it's dependent upon the action of the individual, it means that the individual thinks that he has a separate action to God, right? That God will do, even if God does 99% of it, I have to do 1% of it. Once we start thinking, I have to do that, it is my responsibility to do this much. And if I don't do that, the whole endeavor fails, right? Then then the Tengalai Acharyas, the southern school of Sri Vaishnava, say, as soon as you think that, you are captured by false ego. You're captured by false ego, thinking that your actions or your efforts are even partially the cause of your liberation. Whereas in actual fact, it's only the Lord who works through you, and the Lord even who allows you to perform any action whatsoever. So everything is done by the Lord, according to the Tengalai Sri Vaishnava Acharyas. And therefore, if a person thinks that he is doing something independent of God, right, then he's thinking that he's independent from God. And he's not thinking that he's completely and absolutely subservient and dependent upon God. So the emphasis by the southern school of Sri Vaishnavism, by the Tengalai Sri Vaishnavas, is absolute, utter dependence on God in every way, like that. Not even to the idea that we have to do even 1%, that we have to be qualified and we have to do even 1%. So the Tengalai Acharyas actually say that because these paths like Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga, and Bhakti Yoga indicate that the individual soul has a responsibility to perform particular hard sadhanas, right, which may take a long time and may take a lot of effort like that, and those efforts have to be made by the individual soul, that indicates that's trying to tell the individual soul that he is a doer, when in fact the individual soul is not a doer. The individual soul is only a servant of the Supreme Lord, is like a slave of the Supreme Lord, and has no separate action apart from what the Lord allows him to do. So therefore, the Sri Vaishnava, southern school of Sri Vaishnavism basically says these other paths of Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga, and Bhakti Yoga are sinful because in order to perform them, in order to take to them, one first of all has to think that he is qualified and that his efforts alone, not alone, but in cooperation with the efforts of God, even if it's only 1%, he has to think that his efforts are what makes the process work. Whereas Sharanagati is completely, the grace of the Lord is, if the grace of the Lord is totally irresistible and causeless, there is no cause for his grace. There is no cause for liberation. It's only the sweet will of the Lord that gives the liberation to living beings. So it's a slight difference in emphasis here, but basically, it doesn't make that much difference because Vedanta Deshika and the Northern Acharyas say, in theory, people can do Bhakti Yoga, Karma Yoga, and Jnana Yoga if they're qualified for it. But in actual fact, no Sri Vaishnavas do Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga, Bhakti Yoga. They perform karmas, they perform jnana, they study scriptures, and they perform bhakti, acts of devotion. But these acts are not meant to be a part of an effort to attain moksha. They're not part of an effort to attain moksha. Whether they do those things or do not do those things, right, does not lead them to moksha. They do Sharanagati or property or surrender, right? And that is the thing. That is the cause of moksha, is the surrender to the Lord. So both sects totally agree on that, and that surrender should be done just once, and that the Lord guarantees it, and it's the quickest and easiest method. So from the point of view of what actually is practiced, both the Tengalais and Wadagalais agree 100%. In the theory realm, right, of what's possible, right, Vedanta Deshika makes some arguments that we should accept that Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga, and Bhakti Yoga are possible paths to liberation, because for those persons who are qualified for them, because they are taught in the scriptures by the Supreme Lord. The Tengalais say no. The idea is that we should give up even the smallest trace of self-ego, of self-absorption and false ego, and we should simply be the slaves of the Lord. And everything is done by the Lord. He's the only doer, and therefore the only enjoyer of the fruits of action. Right. So, and in fact, both sects go to very great lengths to, whenever they do something, to attribute the doing of the ritual or the doing of the sadhana, right, to God. Right. The Wadagalais have this. They will specifically say, the Satvika Tyaga mantra at the beginning and end of every ritual to say, I'm not doing this, God is doing this through me, I am not doing this. So when the Wadagalais or the Northern School, following Ramanuja in his Nitya Grantha, which is his book for daily worship and daily rituals and daily practice of the Sri Vaishnavas, when they go to so much trouble to say, I am not doing this, the Lord is doing this. Whatever is being done only by the Lord, and therefore all of the action is done by him, and all of the result is due to him. And when the Tengalais also say the same thing, right? When both sides say the action is being done by the Lord, then how can we say that we can do Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga, and Bhakti Yoga? Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga, and Bhakti Yoga also therefore require Sharanagati and require surrender, like that. So it's a moot point, actually. It's an academic point, and it's an academic difference, but in practical terms, it makes no difference whatsoever, because everybody is, all Sri Vaishnavas are performing property or Sharanagati only. So in the fourth point now, in Vedanta Deshika's opinion, the successful practice of Sharanagati depends on 5 important angas, or 5 things, right? So there's a sloka which comes from the Pancharatra. It's mentioned in Ahibudnya Samhita and also in the Lakshmi Tantra. Anukulyasya Sankalpa Partikulyasya Varjana, and it mentions the Sadvidhi Sharanagati. So there are these 6 angas of surrender. Surrender is the last one. So we can say there's 5 angas and 1 angi. So there's 5 limbs or 5 parts to surrender, and surrender is the 6th thing mentioned, right? So 6 things are mentioned. So the 5 important, Anukulyasya Sankalpa means following the orders of God, doing what God wants us to do, And then Padikulisa Varjana means restraining ourselves and not doing any sinful activities, what God doesn't want us to do, having complete faith, Mahavishvasha, in the Lord, feeling completely helpless without the Lord, feeling that He will save us. And anyway, we'll read more about them as we go along. But anyway, so Vedanta Deshika says that for the successful practice of Sharanagati, they depend upon prerequisites of these things, Anukulisa Sankalpa, Pratikulisa Varjana, etc. Whereas Pillai Lokacharya also accepts the same verse, but he doesn't consider those things to be prerequisites. There's no prerequisites according to the Southern School of Tengalai Sri Vaishnavas, right? There's no prerequisites for surrender. One simply surrenders, and those 5 things will come about as post-requisites. They will appear. They will come about in the life of the refugee or the devotee as he surrenders to the Lord. They will come about like that. So Pilalokacharya says simple surrender to the Lord with full faith will follow all other things. All other things will follow automatically, as sweet follows when one threshes paddy. Sweet follows when one threshes paddy. I'm not sure exactly what that means. When you thresh paddy, you get rice. So what that has to do with sweet, I don't understand. Okay. So anyway, the 5th point here is Vedanta Deshika considers that Sharanagati or surrender is a consequence of the grace of God, while Pillai Lokacharya says that Sharanagati or surrender may be considered as mean for the grace of God. Okay, I'm not sure what he means by that here. So considers that is a consequence of the grace of God. Surrender is a consequence of the grace of God, whereas Pillai Lokacharya it's a means for the grace of God. Okay, that's a very small difference here. The 6th point is Vedanta Deshika believes that God's forgiveness can be received only on performing Sharanagati, irrespective of whether the prapana or the refugee at the feet of God has committed sins knowingly or unknowingly, right? So the Vedanta Deshika says that God's forgiveness can be received only by performing Sharanagati, and that irrespective of whether the prapana has committed sins knowingly or unknowingly. On the contrary, Pillai Lokacharya says, he opines, that it is enough if one can remember one Sharanagati performed earlier. So the point being explained here is that what if we surrender to God, right? And surrender, both sides, both sects say that the surrender should be once only, should be momentary and once only, right? It should be mental, momentary, and once only. Okay, so that surrender is done once only. What happens if the person again sins after doing surrender to God, after surrendering to God? So Vedanta Deshika, they say that, okay, so he has to believe in God's forgiveness. He has to perform what's called a prayaschitta property, another type of property. He has to surrender again, but not the same way that he did before, in order to free himself from those sins that he did after performing property. Pillai Lokacharya, however, says the only prayaschitta, the only atonement for a sin after property is simply to remember that one did property that one time, like that. Remembrance of property of the one time that one did property is enough, like that. That's a very small detail also. Both sides, both of the sects do not believe in doing property surrender to God twice. So another important interpretation is Vedanta Deshika explained the mystic experiences of the soul by drawing a comparison of a baby monkey clinging to its mother monkey that jumps from tree to tree. This is called Markata Kishore. Kishore means baby, right? Markata Kishore Nyaya. So it means the baby monkey logic. This implies that in Sharanagati, the prapana, or the refugee at the feet of God, must cling to God so that he can be carried to moksha, or to liberation, by God's grace. This is also called Simhavahana Guptanaya, right? So the idea of the Simhavana Guptanaya is that, for instance, if you have a very small bug and it's sitting on the back of a lion is a very great beast. So that lion can jump from one hill to another hill, from one small piece on the ground. He can make a big jump, and he can jump many feet. The bug on the back of the lion also goes with the lion when the lion jumps, right? This is the type. That's also another explanation of that nyaya, of that logic. So, but Pilalokacharya compares the mystical experience of the soul to a cat carrying a kitten, right, in its mouth without the effort of the kitten. Even if the kitten, and this is called Marjala Kishore Nyaya, even if the kitten rebels against the mother cat or struggles against the mother, right, still the mother is strong enough to completely take the kitten to safety, like that. And it requires no effort, absolutely no effort on the part of the kitten to be saved by the mother cat. So it says that when the cat kitten is helpless and the mother cat grasps it in its mouth and carries it from place to place for its welfare. In the same way, the extreme helpless conditions of the prapana, or the refugee at the Lord's feet, is taken by God himself to the ultimate destination, namely liberation or moksha. The above examples are nothing but different stages of helpless conditions to overcome such impediments by the grace of God. The religion of Saranagati was a subject of study from ancient Vedas down to the hymns of the Alwars. Also, a number of post and pre-Ramanujite acharyas have formulated their views on this doctrine, and the fact is known from the foregone pages that we've just been through. From the accounts given in the above pages of this chapter, it is learned that important acharyas like Munacharya Alavandar, Ramanuja in Viramanna, Pillai Lokacharya, also known as Lokacharya, right? Vedanta Deshika, right? And Malavala Mahamuni, what to speak of Lokacharya's brother, Alagiya Manavala Paramanayana, who established the path of Saranagati or surrender, systematized this doctrine to play a pivotal role as a sadhana, or we can say sadhana or an upaya, a means to uplift living beings from the clutches of samsara, or this material cycle of birth, death, disease, and old age, and reach the abode of God, Sri Vaikuntham. It is said that if Ramanuja, Pilalokacharya, and Vedanta Deshika, that if had not given such a clear and systematic account of Saranagati or surrender, even now this doctrine would be vague and indefinite. Because remember from our previous discussion, the system of Saranagati is there even in the Vedas. It's there in the Upanishads, which is one of the 32 methods called Nyasa Vidya, which is mentioned in the Upanishads. So we can even find Vedic injunctions which prescribe this surrender, this process of surrender. Hence, the credit of explaining and elaborating and reaffirming on solid grounds the doctrine of surrender or Saranagati should go to the above acharyas. Pilalokacharya and Vedanta Deshika have explained the inner meanings and significance of Saranagati or surrender in all its aspects in their works. Thus, the exposition of Saranagati as a sadhana or a means is all comprehensive and definitive. Hence, this concept shown by the Purva Acharyas, the previous Acharyas, the prior teachers, right, becomes a basis for detailed study as a sadhana or a means, or upaya, to attain moksha or liberation from this material world, salvation. Following this, I will explain the further angas of Saranagati, the different limbs and sections of Saranagati, the three mantras implying Saranagati, which we've talked about before, the Astakshara or Tira Mantram, right, the Dvaya Mantram and the Charma Sloka of Lord Krishna, Bhakti and Saranagati as compared, right, and arguments in support of Saranagati and the conduct of a prapana or a refugee at the feet of the Lord in detail from different forms of literature on Saranagati.
I always heard over the years with Srila Prabhupada and even the other acharyas in the lineage speaking about the cat, the markat, and the monkey and the cat. And this is one of the in the same book I told you about Sripad Ramanujacharya, this was one of the things that actually attracted me to some degree to the Shri Vaishnava philosophy, in the sense that the cat will carry it, as you said, without damaging or hurting the young. The cat will carry the young to a safe and secure place, verily showing that the mercy of the Lord, the prasad, the mercy of the Lord is there via the acharya. And just
when you read Srila Prabhupada, he talks, when he mentions this, and he doesn't mention it often, but when he mentions this analogy, he says that we are like the cat, like that. Yeah. He likes that idea of the baby kitten. Even he might struggle, or even he might be completely helpless, but he's taken to safety by his mother, by the mother cat, the Marjala Nyaya, Marjala Kishore Nyaya, the baby kitten logic. But in actual fact, when people talk about bhakti and property, and see, this is the problem with trying to compare Gaudiya Vaishnavism and Sri Vaishnavism, is the fact that the acharyas like Rupa Goswami, the acharyas like Rupa Goswami, this anukulya sankalpa partikulisya varjana rakshitya vishvaso govatutva varnam tata atmanikshepa karpanye sadvidha sharanagati mantra or sloka is quoted both by the Goswamis of Vrindavan and also by the Sri Vaishnavas. So both sects, they quote this. You can look it up in Prabhupada's literature also. People know this verse, but they just have a slightly different understanding of what it means. For Sri Vaishnavas, Sharanagati is a separate, or surrender is a separate path from bhakti. Whereas for Gaudiya Vaishnavas, Sharanagati is Atma Nivedana, which is a part of Navada Bhakti. So when a Gaudiya Vaishnava talks about surrender, he's talking about surrender as part of Bhakti Yoga. When a Sri Vaishnava talks about surrender, he's talking about surrender as a part of, as a separate path, like that. So there are good arguments on both sides, right? But if we're looking at the difference between property and bhakti, right? This cooperative grace is more, the Gaudiya Vaishnavas are more attracted to the idea of cooperative grace. And we can see this because some of the Gaudiya Acharyas have, for instance, have given the purport to Lord Krishna's Damodar Leela, where Lord Krishna is tied by Mother Yasoda up to the grinding stone. So there, I think Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says that the rope is always 2 inches too short. And the 2 inches are supposed to be analogous of the effort of the devotee and the grace of the Lord. So the effort of the devotee is important to the Gaudiya Vaishnavas. The effort is important. Whereas to the Sri Vaishnavas, the effort is not so important. It's not important at all. It's the grace of the Lord which does everything, especially for the Tengalai Sri Vaishnavas, but also for the Vadagalai Sri Vaishnavas. So when you see, if people are really trying to explain to you bhakti and property and the difference, a lot of times you'll see a picture of the monkey with the baby on the back, and underneath it'll say bhakti. And on the other side, you'll see a picture of the cat with the mother cat with the baby kitten in its mouth, and you'll see property. So very clearly, most people believe that bhakti, the system of bhakti yoga, is the Markata Nyaya, Markata Nyaya, the monkey system. And the system of the cat and the mother cat, the kitten and the mother cat, that is the system of property. So that's what most people believe, like that. So when we see that acharyas like Srila Prabhupada have said, no, we are more like the cat. We believe more in the grace of the Lord, like that. It shows that it's just a matter, that also this idea of the grace of the Lord is also very much there in all the Vaishnava Sampradayas, and even in the Gaudiya Sampradaya. And Sharanagati, or surrender, is a very important part of Gaudiya Sampradaya. It's just that there's some slight differences in terminology being used by the Goswamis and the Sri Vaishnavas. So when we use different terms or terminology, we have to see how they're defined. Sri Vaishnavas define Bhakti Yoga as being possible only for men who are born in the Brahman, Kshatriya, and Vaishya Varnas.
Yes.
And that is Bhakti Yoga, Karma Yoga, and Jnana Yoga is only for Trivarnika males. And they can only, those things are all done according to the system of Varnashrama. And so those persons who cannot follow the system of Varnashrama, right, and follow the Dharma Shastras correctly, they can go and they can perform property like that.
Yeah.
So for women and for foreigners and for, Panchamas and for Sudras and all these sort of people who are not eligible, for elephants like Gajendra, for Rakshasas like Vibhishana, for all sorts of, for the monkeys like Hanuman, for Vanaras, people who are non-human even, like that. So they all have to do the Sharanagati. They all have to do Sharanagati because they're not qualified to chant the Vedic mantras, and you need to chant the Vedic mantras to do all these other things. So that's their definition. However, in North India and many parts of India, people are less orthodox, and they have a different definition of who can perform Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga, and Bhakti Yoga. So basically, if you talk to people, in North India, they'll say, oh, anybody can do Karma Yoga. Karma Yoga means you do your job and you give some money to the temple. Bhakti, Jnana Yoga means we read the Bhagavatam, we study the scriptures. Bhakti Yoga means that we perform Archana and Vandana and we chant Hare Krishna and whatever. This is all Bhakti Yoga. So, okay, so there's a difference in the way that Bhakti Yoga is defined. If you define Bhakti Yoga the way the Sri Vaishnavas define it, then what the Gaudiyas are proposing as Bhakti Yoga is not Bhakti Yoga, it's Sharanagati, it's surrender. If you define Bhakti Yoga the way Gaudiya Vaishnavas do it, then it's property. It's Sharanagati. It's more like the Sharanagati of the Sri Vaishnavas. In both cases, both sampradayas say that those things that you should do for Sharanagati are things that you should do. It's just the Gaudiyas call that Bhakti Yoga, and the Sri Vaishnavas call it property. But it's the same thing. Both are proposing to surrender to God. So the Gaudiyas are very much like the Vadagalai Sampradaya, and in some ways, and there's also some differences, and then Tengalais are more. In some ways, there's some differences and similarities between Madhva Sampradaya and Gaudiya Sampradaya. There's some differences between Gaudiya Sampradaya and Sri Vaishnava Sampradaya. There's some differences in certain different things. So some things are the same, some things are different, but the terminology is basically different. And that's why it's difficult to talk to each other, because we misunderstand when we use the word surrender or Bhakti Yoga, we misunderstand what they mean. So if a Sri Vaishnava goes to a Gaudiya and says, you can't do Bhakti Yoga, then no Gaudiya will accept that. Everybody can do Bhakti Yoga like that. But Sri Vaishnava say, no. Here's all these quotes and things. Only this type of person can do Bhakti. Like that. The Gaudiyas will say, no, you're talking about Karma Kanda or something. They won't understand. So that is why we have to understand. We have to understand each other, right? We have to understand the terminology which is used by each sampradaya. And when we understand the terminology, then we see they're much, much closer than we really thought they were, right? Much, much closer. Because why? If the Goswamis like Rupa Goswami and Vedanta Deshika and the Sri Vaishnavas are quoting the same pramana, the same scriptural sentence, Anukulya Sasankalpa, Sharanagati, they're both saying Sharanagati. If they're both saying Sharanagati is the way and it has these 6 limbs, these six parts, and we're quoting the same sloka, then how can their philosophy be really, really different? It's not. It's very close. Of course, there's some minute doctrinal differences, even between Vadagalais and Tengalais, even between Gaudiyas, Madhvas, and Vallabhas, Nimbarkas. There's some small thing. In general, all the Vaishnava Sampradayas are performing the worship of God, the service of God, and that's their process. So in general, everybody agrees. Pretty much. That's why Prabhupada in his books can say, this Krishna consciousness movement follows Ramanujacharya. This Krishna consciousness movement follows Madhvacharya. And he said he'll say there's no difference in opinion between Madhvacharya and Ramanujacharya and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Nimbarkacharya and Vallabha. There's no difference of opinion. But then sometimes you'll get some very small stories where Lord Chaitanya will go to Udupi and he'll disagree with the Madhvas. or Chaitanya Mahaprabhu will disagree with Vallabhacharya, or Chaitanya Mahaprabhu will have a slight argument with the Sri Vaishnavas in Sri Ranga, with Venkatapada when he's staying there. So although Prabhupada says we all agree, which is a fact, on the major principles, we all agree, right? Still, we can see in Chaitanya Charitamrita that there are some slight differences on things that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had with these other sampradayas. Okay?
As I said, learning about, I think it's Poshan, and Posana in Sri by Vitalnathji, Vallabhacharya.
Poshana.
Yeah. Poshana, yeah.
Okay.
And meaning nourishment. But
Yes.
I was trying to recall if that had any connection with property, in a sense that.
Okay, so if you read Vallabhacharya's philosophy, right, which is basically, we don't know exactly, we have no books or commentaries by Vishnu Swami, but Vallabhacharya claims to be in the lineage of Vishnu Swami, right? But Vallabhacharya, he writes his commentaries and he talks about Pushti and Maryada,
Yes,
right?
sorry.
Pushti and Maryada, if I translate that into Gaudiya speak, that is, Maryada is Vaidhi Bhakti, Pushti is Raganuga Bhakti. Okay? So basic Pushti means there's Pushti devotees and there's Maryada Bhakti devotees. So he says Maryada means awe and reverence, and Pushti means the full of emotion, the emotional type, a different type of bhakti. Okay? So in Sri Vaishnavism, you have that also. You have people who are following rules and regulations to more or less, and then you have also people who, like the Alwars, who have ecstatic, emotional love. They experience these revelations and epiphanies by meditating on the Lord in different temples. So that's there in each sampradaya. All of those things are there in all sampradayas. They just give different names to them. So Pushti Marg, the path of nourishment, Pushti Marg is really like, the idea of Pushti is more like Raganuga Bhakti, whereas Maryada is more like Vaidhi Bhakti, like that. So there's not so much difference between Vallabhacharya and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and Nimbarka also. Nimbarka's worship Radha Krishna, like that. Gaudiya's worship Radha Krishna. Vallabha's worship Radha Krishna. So theologically, even the Madhvas, even the Sri Vaishnavas, I've seen Radha Krishna deities, Sri Vaishnavas and Madhvas also worshipped. So everybody theologically is on the same page. They're all agreed. They're all worshipping the Lord in different forms, especially Radha Krishna, Lakshmi Narayan, Sita Ram, like that. But exactly the terminology that they use for the different stages of their path or their method, right? And what they call the method, whether they call it bhakti or whether they call it pushti bhakti or whether they call it raganuga bhakti or whether they call it sharanagati or whatever they call it, right? Right? It amounts to basically the same thing. Very, very similar. Like that.
No question I had many years ago reading about the Sripad Ramanujacharya. There was one personality. He had done the Saranagati. He was collecting money for one of the temples, not the Devadations, one of the temples, and he had collected some disciples who
Tirumanga Alwar.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember.
Tirumanga Alwar collected money and built the walls of Sri Ranga.
But they actually did a kind of Robin Hood kind of something.
Right.
All right.
All the dacoits in the area joined his gang because he was the most successful dacoit.
Yeah.
Then at the end, he killed them all because they were going to kill him and they were going to take the money, but there was no money. The money was all spent on building the temple, but they thought that he kept the money. So they wanted to kill him and take the money, but there was no money. So one of his disciples led them to a place where they all drowned. Told them that the money is over the other side of the river. The river was in spate. The river was overflooding its banks in the rainy season. And they went in the boat, and the disciple let the put a hole in the boat sunk, and they all drowned because they couldn't swim.
And the commentator from the, I think the book was on the same book by the Ramakrishna Math on Sripad Ramanujacharya. The commentator, he had stated that Srimanara and Lakshmi Math had appeared, but and saved him and guided him out of that path. But he was also saying that they especially relish not saving because he's a pure soul, but saving a soul who is in the depths of who has gone beyond certain moral bounds.
Okay, sure. That doctrine is called Sabhogya Hetaka Kripa. The Lord enjoys the leela of saving the souls.
Yeah.
Right. So if the souls in this world don't commit sins, then what is the impetus for the Lord to save them? Why should the Lord save them? If everybody's perfect, then the Lord doesn't need to save you. He likes saving people, and therefore he wants, I can tell you, like, for instance, a lifeguard, sometimes you sit as a lifeguard at a beach or something like that. When I was teaching scuba, you sit and you have to be a lifeguard for the pool or for the ocean or something like that, or for the boat. And people are swimming. And so everybody knows how to swim. So because everybody knows how to swim, you just sit there and you watch them like that. And sometimes you think, I have nothing to do. It would be nice if somebody was a little bit tired or a little bit panicky and they called out for help. I could save them. I would like to save them like that. So the Lord, he wants to he takes an excuse. If we show that we are helpless, he takes that as an excuse to save us. If we're not helpless, why would he save us? Why would he save you? Why would you save somebody else if they're not helpless? Why would you help someone else who are not asking for help? Sometimes you go to try to help somebody and they say, don't help me, I don't need your help. Right? They get offended even sometimes like that. But if they need help and you help them, that's great. You feel good, they feel good. So the Lord feels good when he saves the souls. This whole earth, this earthly existence in samsara is meant for the living beings to experience, right, being separate from God or trying to be separate from God, trying to enjoy on their own like that. And when they fail, that's good. If they don't fail, then it's problematic, right? So the system is set up for us to fail, right? There's death, there's old age, there's disease, there's all these things. We can't do anything about all of these things. There are certain rules and regulations in this material world. We have to go round and round, and we have to suffer karmas and things like that. So we are going to fail in this material world. This material world, we can never make it perfect. That's on purpose so that God can save us. He enjoys saving us. So in a certain sense, especially the Tengalais, they say God enjoys the sins of the world. He enjoys them in the sense, he doesn't enjoy us sinning. He tells us not to sin. So he doesn't want us to sin, but he enjoys the fact that we do sin so that we can save. The example is given like a mother who has a child, a small baby, right? Even Krishna's Leela was like this. Mother Yasoda said, go out and play Krishna. And Balaram came to Mother Yasoda and said, Krishna's eating dirt. He's being naughty. He's eating dirt. He's not supposed to eat dirt, right? The mother tells the little children, don't eat dirt. If you want to eat something, come to the house. I'll give you something to eat. So they eat, but they go out, they do all sorts of things, children, right? So if a child, the mother will say, don't play in the mud. There's a lot of mud there. You've got a nice dhoti and kurtan. You're looking very nice. You're all nicely dressed and go out and play with your friends, but don't go in the mud. Watch out for the mud. Don't step in the puddles. What do the kids do when they see puddles? When they're really little kids, they jump and they put their feet in the puddles and they splash and splash. They roll around in the dirt, they get mud on themselves, and they come home and the mother is like, oh my God, look at this child, he's covered with dirt. I told you not to do that. The mother is angry. Like the Supreme Lord is angry with us when we perform sins and things. So then what does the mother do? The mother cleans the child. And actually, even though the mother is scolding the child, right? And she's angry and she's scolding the child, but still, while she's cleaning the child, she's actually happy that she gets a chance to clean the child. She's happy when she cleans the child, when she gives the child a bath and she cleans him off and she makes him nice, puts him in fresh clothes and things like that. That gives her motherly affection, comes out because of that. So the Lord is just like that. He's just like that. He's just like that. He is happy to save us. He likes to save us. That is just like a mother. Just like a mother. He feels like that. So in one sense, the mother even may think, oh, I hope that my child will do something naughty or will get dirty or something like that. Then it'll give me a chance to clean him. Like that. So this is the idea, this is God's a person. God's a person, and he has these emotions. He has these feelings towards us. We're his children. So it should only be natural that God has this affection like a parent towards us. And sometimes he's like a father and he's scolding us, right? Sometimes he's like a mother and he's embracing us and saying, oh, I understood you did so many bad things, but still I love you and I want to help you, like that. So it depends. It depends upon his mood, and it depends upon him, like that. Sri Devi our mother is there always to temper him. If you know what it's like. I know my father, sometimes he would get angry with me, and my mother would try and say, oh no, don't get angry with him. He didn't really mean to do it, etc., like that. And then, or sometimes my father would get more angry. Sometimes he would get less angry, whatever, it's like that. So it's not a hard and fast rule, right? God is independent. He doesn't need us. He's completely swatantra. He's completely self-satisfied, but he creates this world and these living beings, right? To show his potency. So he shows that he's omnipotent. He's all powerful, right? All these different types of living beings coming from him, all these different planetary systems. So anything you can think of and all the things that you cannot think of are all coming from God.
Yeah.
Right. So there's infinite variety. It is said that the Supreme Lord Sriman Narayana has ananta, unlimited, kalyana, auspicious, gunas, qualities, right? So this world is like a quality of his. We are like a quality of his. We're all in some way related to the Supreme Lord, like that. So we are also part of his unlimited auspicious qualities too. Right. So he has some servants in Vaikuntha that just do exactly what he says all the time. But even the richest person will get sick of that, right? Yeah. Having servants who are just simply saying yes sir, no sir, 3 bags full sir, like that. He will want to have a friend who calls him by a familiar name. He'll want to have a friend, or he'll want to have a child who rebels against him or does something. He'll want to have a lover who is a little bit, sometimes spurns him, or sometimes is, he'll want to have all these different relationships he wants to have. Even in Gaudiya Vaishnavism, they talk about Krishna's in Goloka Vrindavan. There's no demons there. Well, why should he want demons? Demons are a bad thing, right? Why would God want them? But he wants them. He comes here and he even brings some people from there to be demons and to fight against him. He wants to do that for his own sake, like that. This is like a play. So, when you go to the theater for a play, it's not always a comedy. It's not always a love story. Sometimes it's a tragedy. Sometimes it's a different type of play, We go and we see a murder mystery, or we go and see something like that. Why do we want to see? It's variety. We want to see the different varieties, like that. So if we, in our limited condition, want variety, what is Prabhupada even says, variety is the mother of enjoyment. People say variety is the spice of, in English we usually say variety is the spice of life, but Prabhupada said variety is the mother of enjoyment. So that is, the Supreme Lord enjoys through variety. He has his divine consort Radharani. Why would he want other consorts? Why would he want 16,000 other, wives in Dwarka? Why would he want to have a Leela with Kubja? Why would he want to have a Leela with, why would there be prostitutes in Dwarka? why would he have so many other other different types of relationships with demons, with devotees, with men, with women, with animals, all like that. He has all these different relationships. Why not everybody be a gopi and and everybody's there. Sometimes we hear from devotees, they think, oh, being a gopi or being a magician, that's the greatest thing like that. But God wants to enjoy all varieties. He wants to enjoy all varieties. You may want to enjoy one variety. You may be one-pointed like that, but he's not like that. He enjoys, he has his father and his mother. He has his foster father and his foster mother. He has his brothers and sisters. He has his friends. He has the cows. He has, Govardhan Hill. He has all these different things. He has variety. He is not only wanting one way, like that. Oh, my devotee came and he offered me a banana again. He offered me another banana. Next day, tomorrow, he's going to offer me another banana. Oh, I'm getting sick of this. Why not there be some variety, right? So that's the point. If we look at all the, why does he have to come in all these different avatars? Why not just come as the same avatar every once in a while? Every once in a while he shows up as the Lord Rama and never shows up as Krishna or never shows up as Narasimha, right? Brahma made him think, right? When Ravana asked, or Hiranyakashipu asked for the boon from Brahma, he asked him this and that and the other. He asked him all these things, and then the Lord had to become in a form that accommodated whatever Hiranyakashipu asked, like that. So it was up to him to decide, and he decided. But the Lord said, "Yeah, that'll be fun. Let the demon decide what kind of form I'm going to come in. How can I outsmart this demon? Of course, the Lord can outsmart all of us. But he let it go on for variety because he enjoys variety. So anyway, these are some of the reasons, and this is a play. It's like a play, like that. So the difference is that we are very serious. We think that we are the characters. We think that we are, if we have a name, we think that we are belonging to a particular country and a particular community and a particular thing like that because of our body, like that, or our mentality, like that. We think like that. But actually we're just playing a role. We're playing a role. The Lord, see, that's what Krishna says when he comes in the Gita. He says, many, many births, both you and I have gone through, Arjuna. The difference is, I remember all of them. You don't. So you're an illusion here. You're here. You're on the stage, playing a part of a Kshatriya on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, and you really are attached to this whole thing. You're upset that you have to kill your parents and your teachers and all these things, and you're worried about all the women who will die, who will be abused if their husbands are killed in the battle. You're worried about all these things, but you're thinking like a fool. You're not really that person. You are not that body. You are a spirit soul. You are a pure soul. You have nothing to do with this, actually, like that. Krishna, on the other hand, he knows that he's God, like that. So for him, it does. He just says to him, he says, all of these people are already dead. Just remember, if you take birth in this world, you are already dead. You're dead. I'm dead. We're all dead already. It's just a matter of time. It's just a matter of time. We will die. We will die. And if we don't come to Krishna consciousness, if we don't come to Vaishnavism, we will have to come around and around. We will take rebirth, like that. Yeah. So he gives us a chance to get out of that cycle, right? To realize that we are actors and we're not supposed to be in this material world. And then when the curtain comes down on the play, the actors go home, right? Mm-hmm. But the stupid actors, they sit there on the stage and they think, what's going on? What's going on? The curtain's coming down on these materialists when they're dying. The curtain's coming down on their life. It's the end of their life. Like it's the end of the play. They're thinking, well, what's next? what's next is the curtain comes down, the actors leave the stage, they take the costumes off, and they go about their business. They go about their happy life. Like that, right? They all go and they're all friends. Even if on stage they were enemies, right? When they go out, they're all friends. Like that. So that's the reality. We have to realize what the reality is, and we have to act like that. Otherwise, if we're too serious and we think, oh, we are this body, we're this community, we're this particular type of person, then that's all. We're identifying with this material world, and then we'll just stay in this material world. We become typecast, right? It's like an actor who can only play one role. He goes for an audition for a play, and he says, I played a murderer in my last thing. Well, we want you to play a lover. We want you to play a cow in the next thing. We want you to play, you have a different part. We want you to play this other part in this thing. He goes, no. I am what I am. I can't change like that. So that's illusion. That's an illusion. We are simply, what we are that we can't change is that we are the servant of God. Like that. How we serve him, that can change. That's according to his will. He's the director of the play. So whatever position he wants me to put in, whatever role he wants me to play in the play, he will tell me, he'll make me do that. I'm a puppet on a string. I'm a puppet on a string, and God's pulling the strings. Like that. So these are some of the ideas that we have in Vaishnavism, and we have to realize that. And by saying all these things, these doctrines in different ways, it gives us a better idea of what we're talking about. When we keep on saying the same things over and over again, right, then maybe it doesn't click with us. But when we say these things in different novel ways, we begin to understand. It jogs us out of our complacency. I try to get people to think outside of the box. People are inside a box. They're inside, they're born in a particular family, in a particular country, in a particular society, and they think like that. I am an Australian. I was born in Australia. I think like an Australian. I have to act like an Australian. I have to follow the cultural, social customs of Australia like that. No, you're not that. You are not that body, right? Mm-hmm. So similarly, if you're an American, or if you're a Trinidadian, or if you're an Indian, or whatever it is, like that, or I'm a fat person, a thin person, a man or a woman or an animal, whatever. These are not permanent designations. These are roles that we are playing in this world. That's all.
It's really amazing that even the young kitten might stray, and that's why I like Sripad Ramanujacharya's philosophy. Whereas in the Markat, the baby monkey, if he goes, the mother monkey might even leave him, just as the soul which is recalcitrant in the material world. Whereas the baby, the kitten, the mother cat will go immediately and search out for the kitten.
Yes.
And if the kitten falls, the mother cat will grab the kitten by its neck and bring it back forcefully. Right. So basically, from what that I would dare postulate that in Sri Vaishnavism, every single soul is saved at the end.
I mean, actually in all Vaishnavism except for Madhva.
Except Madhva, yeah.
Madhva has this idea of eternal hell or eternal samsara also. Yeah. Like that, for some souls will stay in samsara forever, and some will go to hell forever. They have that idea. That's also part of the variety of Madhva. Madhva has that idea of variety too. But ultimately, your father and mother will not let you suffer like that. Mm-hmm. Right? As long as your father and mother are alive, they will try to help the children. Am I right? Right? Especially the mother. Does the mother ever abandon? No, the mother never abandons the children. The father and mother, they always look out for the children as long as they can, like that. Even if the child does something so bad, like that, So I mean, we have to look at the scripture and what it says, And the Madhvas have their idea of what the scripture says, and they interpret it in a certain way. But it goes against the idea, the very idea of the grace of God, right? To think that God would damn a soul forever. But the Semitic religions are like that. Most religious people in the world, they're either Jews, Christians, or Muslims, or Hindus, right? Or Buddhists, right? These are the major religions. The Eastern religions do not, except for Madhva, the Eastern religions, even Buddhism, even Jainism, none of the Eastern religions believe in this. Only Madhva. All of the Western religions believe in eternal hell. So that's like Madhva, like that. Madhva also believes in that, right? That. No, none of the Eastern religions believe in that. They don't believe in that.
It goes to show that the mercy of Sri Manarayana is beyond compare. Where you spoke, not this class, but previously on the Charam Shloki, where Lord Varaha, even if I don't remember you or Sri Manarayana at the end at that particular point, you will remember, basically Shiva Narayana, Lord Varaha will remember me at that point. And once throughout my life, not just at the end, but throughout my life, that I've done my Vaishnav, for my Vaishnav Dharma, my devotion, Sharanagati, property surrendering, whereas some schools of thought might have a little difference in saying that.
Sure.
If at that point you didn't
Baladev Vidyabhushana of the Gaudiya Vaishnava Sampradaya has also given a sloka like Varaha Charma sloka, which he says is from Varaha Purana, right? And that says the same thing. It says the same thing as the Varaha Charma sloka that the Sri Vaishnavas know.
Which look at that?
In his commentary on Vishnu Sahasranama, there is a sloka, Mahavaraha Govinda Shushena Kanakangadi, Guhyas Guhyo Gabiro Gahano Guptas Chakra Gadadaraha is the sloka. In the commentary by Baladev Vidyabhushana on that sloka, he gives a comment in his commentary, and the second part of it's a little different than the Sri Vaishnava mantra, right? But the last line is exactly the same. Aham smarami mad bhaktam nayami paramam gatim. I will remember my devotee and I will take him to the supreme abode.
Om Namo Narayana.